So this week we have read Mark chapter 6, verse 14 through Mark chapter 8, verse 10. So we will start with 6:14. Last Friday's readings was 14 through 29. So I'll read that and then we will see what comes up. So here we go. Mark 16, verse 14. King Herod heard about this, for Jesus' name had become well known. Some were saying, John the Baptist has been raised from the dead, and that is why miraculous powers are at work in him. Others said, he is Elijah. And still others claimed, he is a prophet, like one of the prophets of long ago. But when Herod heard this, he said, John, the man I beheaded, has been raised from the dead. For Herod himself had given orders to have John arrested, and he had him bound and put in prison. He did this because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. For John had been saying to Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. So Herodias nursed a grudge against John and wanted to kill him, but she was not able to because Herod feared John and protected him, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man. When Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled, yet he liked to listen to him. Finally, the opportune time came. On his birthday, Herod gave a banquet for his high officials and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. When the daughter of Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guests. The king said to the girl, ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you. And he promised her with an oath, whatever you ask, I will give you, up to half my kingdom. She went out and said to her mother, what shall I ask for? The head of John the Baptist, she answered. At once the girl hurried in to the king with the request, I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter. The king was greatly distressed, but because of his oaths and his dinner guests, he did not want to refuse her. So he immediately sent an executioner with orders to bring John's head. The man went, beheaded John in the prison, and brought back his head on a platter. He presented it to the girl, and she gave it to her mother. On hearing of this, John's disciples came and took his body and laid him in a tomb. Kind of a crazy story, isn't it? To be clear, when I see a story like this is so oddly specific that it almost has to be true. You know, if you doubted anything else, this is so weird. Why would they include it if it wasn't true? You get what I'm saying by that? You have any questions from it or any thoughts?
I kind of have some thoughts. I wonder should have known.
Go for it.
I kind of think that Herod, I think in a way he respected, I think he liked to listen to John the Baptist. I think maybe he believed some of what he was saying, but because of where he was, and I think in my mind, John the Baptist, I think had a following. So then if he would kill him, which I don't think he wanted to, he would have, that would have caused an uprising, a big uprising with the people that was following. But also then I think it comes back to like last week when I said that honor and shame is a big Jewish tradition. I think that and I think that he was to the point in that when he made that promise to her that he couldn't back off from that because if he did,
too deep.
He's in too deep, and he had big leaders, and he would be shamed if he. I think that there's where honor and shame comes in again. He had the nobles, he had military commanders, and I don't think he could back down once he made the promise to that.
So, do you remember a couple weeks ago when I said who Mark was written to?
Was written to?
Who was it written for?
Peter.
No, Peter is the person whose story we have here, but who did Mark what?
Herodians?
The Herodians, Herod's
Oh,
people. In my Bible, it gives references to when the story is used in other places. So if you look in the same story in Luke is Luke 9:7-9. There is little discussion about why Herod had John the Baptist killed. It just talks about it. It's instead of here we have, what is this? 15 verses, 16 verses. Luke's story is 3. In Matthew, it's chapter 14, verses 1-12. It's over it's 3 times as long as Luke's, but it's still not as long as Matthew or as Mark's. Mark is the shortest gospel, but he spends the more time on this story than any other gospel does.
why is that?
Kind of like what she's saying, it's like the fear of man versus fear of God.
Well, there's a level in which in Mark's gospel, is Herod a bad guy in this story?
No, he doesn't.
He makes a rash vow and has to pay bad consequences because of that vow.
Because of the vow.
But is he really the bad guy?
No, Rhodius is.
Yes. And I think that that's on purpose. Because if the Herodians, Herod's followers, Herod's group of leaders, is the audience, they're not letting Herod off the hook with this, but they're also giving him the most benefit of the doubt. Do you see what I'm? And so that's why you can have the same story told in 3 different ways, but the main details are the same. Herod kills John. Herod has John beheaded. Luke doesn't care how, he doesn't care why, he just like it happened. And he ties it to this discussion about who is Jesus? Is he Elijah? Is he some prophet? Is he John the Baptist? That discussion is important in Luke's gospel, but not all this why. The why is important in Matthew's gospel, but it's still not as kind to Herod as Mark is. There's a thing I was told back in seminary. There are layers of truth. And it's all based on your level of trust and what you're trying to accomplish. When we were in seminary, in the story I tell people, it just to kind of explain things, I would say, if someone came up to me and they asked, how are you doing today? For the most part, I could say I was doing okay. And that would not be a lie, but it would not be the full truth. If they were a closer friend and they said, how are you doing today? I might say something like, well, I'm doing okay, but we've been struggling with Blake. And at that point in time, our son Blake was really starting to become a little bit of a handful. If they were closer yet, I might say, we're getting through, we're struggling with Blake, and it's causing some friction between Melissa and I in our marriage. Do you get what I'm saying? If for my closest friends, I might have said, things are not good. Melissa and I are at each other's throats because Blake's just making things difficult. Now, was the first one not the truth? It was true to the level of trust and friendship in the relationship. Do you get what I'm saying? And so Luke's story is the truth. Herod kills John the Baptist. But for his audience, they don't care about Herod. Luke is written to Greek believers. It's written to this Theophilus, this guy with a Greek name. Do the Greeks care about Herod? Yeah, don't care at all. Matthew is written to a Hebrew audience. They do care about Herod. So a little bit more explanation is good there. Mark is written literally to Herod's household. So he's going to tell the same story, but he's going to give as much grace where it can be given, but he doesn't let him off the hook. Does that make sense? Any other thoughts on this section? I don't think that Mark, Matthew, or Luke, any of them are telling a less truth. I think they're just telling what's pertinent to the audience they're talking to. And that's why each gospel has a different value. It's not that one is telling the truth and another one's lying, or one is omitting things on purpose. It's just,
It's just what you said.
right.
It depends on who you're talking to, what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
This is a good example.
And so this story in particular is a really good example of why the synoptic gospels are different. It's all about who they're speaking to.
Which makes it nice because then you do see the whole circle. You do see that.
Luke's gonna focus on things that the Greek believers would be concerned about, and that Jewish believers don't. Matthew's gonna be concerned about things that the Hebrew believers are dealing with, and the Greeks don't. And so this is a good story to show that. Anything else? Then let's go to our next one. Saturday's reading was 30 through 44. Says, the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. But many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. By this time it was late in the day, so his disciples came to him. This is a remote place, they said, and it's already very late. Send the people away so they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. But he answered, you give them something to eat. They said to him, that would take 8 months of a man's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread to give it to them to eat? How many loaves do you have? He asked. Go and see. When they found out, they said 5 and 2 fish. Then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to set before the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces of bread and fish. The number of men who had eaten was 5,000. So, what do you notice? What questions do you want to ask?
They don't get it.
No, they
Not
really.
yet, yeah. They, and I think Jesus had compassion.
Mhm.
I think we're gonna see that again. That was something that caught my eye, because I had read ahead. But he had compassion again, I mean, it just caught my attention. But yeah, what do you want us to do?
So, odd little detail, I just caught this. In verse 39, it said he had the people sit down in green grass. Why do you think that's important? When is grass the greenest?
Spring.
Spring. What do you do in spring around here? What happens in spring? The planting. When would you have the lowest level of wheat stores?
Spring.
After you've planted. So here he is planting seeds amongst the people, right? He's telling them the good news, and all around them is the season of planting. And the disciples are saying, we don't have enough food. Go send them to the community. Would the community have enough food? No. More than likely not, because again, most people, you sell off everything that you don't need in the winter months to get through, and you retain only enough to plant and then to feed your family because you need the money for everything else. So would they have had a whole lot of extra in the communities around here to even feed the people? If it was spring, probably not. So even what the disciples are suggesting probably isn't possible. Now, maybe that's not all that important, but that just really stood out to me in this moment. That, how many times have you heard people say, well, let somebody else do it? And we know that there's nobody else who can do it. We think, oh, there should be somebody who can handle this. But realistically, we know it's ours to do. And I almost get that picture that Jesus is painting here that, Jesus knows these people. And probably, let me ask this question. The people who are more apt to follow Jesus, do you think this is the poor and needy or the wealthy and content? Poor and needy. So would they even have the funds to go get the bread that they even, and are you seeing a picture that's being painted in here? That one little phrase causes me to see a picture that makes this an even more desperate situation than what you would normally consider. And so Jesus is trying to feed them both spiritually and physically and show them that when you pursue God, He will provide your needs. And as you said, the disciples don't get it.
But I took that too, that when I was thinking about that, I thought of us, me being the disciple like them. Well, I want to do something, but what do I do? And then I think we learned this even back here when I read ahead. He gives us what we need if we can do what we want to do. We can do anything because He's going to provide it. And He's going to give us the guidance to do it, just like He did with them. You can do it.
If we are doing it for His glory.
For His glory.
And we're doing it within His will, then God will provide everything we need to make that happen. Now, we could be doing something very spiritual that we're doing it for our glory and not His, and it won't work.
You see that too. You see that fine line. Are you doing it for you? Or are you doing it for Him? Keep Him on the throne.
We also
Put yourself on the throne.
We also could do things that are for God's glory, but not within God's will in that moment, and He doesn't let them happen. It takes both in His will and for His glory.
She goes to 12 baskets, 12.
Yep.
Yeah, because 12 is all throughout Mark, because there's like 12 apostles, then the
12 tribes, 12 complete.
Back,
Isn't that complete in God's people?
and the 12.
12 is, yes, for the children of Israel, they began to see the number 12 as their full number. It's their
completeness.
We think of a perfect 10, right? That's kind of, our culture is centered around the number 10. Their culture is centered around the number 12.
Because of the tribes.
12 tribes.
Everything.
Yeah, just they fit in sets of
12 disciples. Yeah.
So 12 baskets. They only started with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Is that even a basket full?
No.
It's barely a lunchbox full.
Yeah.
No, but it adds up to 7.
It does have up to 7.
Seven's.
I did a sermon once when we were in. What?
Where'd they get the baskets from?
Yeah.
Wow.
Someone was carrying around empty baskets.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad.
Well, they wouldn't have the baskets to catch the fish, so they had the because if they had fish, they had fish in a basket, I'd hope.
About how many people are here in Richland County?
9,500.
9,500?
That's
Oh,
only,
Rick, oh, that's only,
8,700 is only proper, according to the signs.
only proper.
According to the sign, it says population 8,700.
I thought it was 9,500.
I think Richland County's around 16,000. The whole county.
Well, when we were in Tell City, Perry County was 19,000 people. And I said, could you imagine feeding all of Perry County with 5 tortillas and 2 fish?
No.
Because 5,000 men is pretty safe to assume you could get at least 3 times that, because it mentions at least women and children. And probably more like closer to 4 times that. So it could have been as many as 19, 20,000 people who ate that day off of 5 tortillas and 2 fish. So all of Richland County.
They eat as much as we do then.
What?
They don't eat as much as we do.
But still, off of 5 tortillas and 2 fish.
Not very much.
And even if they're little bitty baskets, let's say, modern woman's purse size basket, to fill 12 of those after just starting with 5 tortillas and 2 fish is pretty astounding. Anything else you notice? Or any other questions? All right, then we'll go to our next story. On Sunday, we read 45 through 56, or the end of the chapter. So, Mark 6:45. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on the mountain to pray. When evening came, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. About the 4th watch of night, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because they saw him and were terrified. Immediately, he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. When they had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out of the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout the whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages, towns, or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched him were healed. So, what do you notice?
He just like technically walks out on the water because it said he was gonna pass them by. I'm like, did he just was that just a thing he did?
Apparently,
Just a regular nightly stroll on the.
why row across when you can just walk?
So he looked like a ghost. I wonder what.
Yeah,
I guess just maybe he had white on or white and he just.
I would think the moonlight would reflect.
Yeah.
Kind of eerie looking.
Yeah, I wonder. You wonder what he looked like.
See a silhouette coming at you. That's why it's like nightly walk on the water.
Squirrel moment. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Might as well. Let's have this conversation. So what do you think they thought ghosts were?
Oh, yeah, why'd you bring that up? I don't even know. I didn't even think.
You're imposing our understanding of ghosts and spirits.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Instead of assuming our version, what do you think they thought? Or do you think they thought he was a ghost simply because he was walking on the water? And for them, a ghost could look just like any of us. We think
Did
of,
they say that he was a ghost? Is there any other language in this? Did they say, what did they think a ghost was? Was that something they had, I don't know what that is. What were they thinking?
Well, it wasn't a trash bag.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. But I mean, did they, when I think of a ghost, I'm thinking it's something that's not alive. I don't think a ghost.
We're in Mark 6, right?
So I wonder what the other word was in the other languages.
All right, I'm pulling up the Greek. That's what I'm doing.
Come, I didn't look that up.
This is verse 49. Mm,
And while you're looking it up, how many times does he say, do not be afraid?
They use the word phantom,
Oh, phantom.
phantasm, an apparition. Something that does not make sense.
Oh, okay,
So they
that
were
makes sense.
hallucinating.
There
Maybe
you
fish
go.
is bad.
Yeah. They eat raw fish one day.
Well,
I mean, when you're sick, when you're seasick, if it's the water's churning, you kind of start to see stuff.
who actually can walk on water? Do you know anybody who can walk on water? So they believe they're hallucinating. It's a phantom. It's an optical illusion. They're seeing things.
That makes more sense to me. That sounds better than a ghost.
Because we have a certain understanding of what a ghost is.
Yeah.
But a phantom means you think you're seeing something that's not there.
Hallucinating. I kind of like that. Good thinking.
They've been straining so hard and it's the winds and the waves are so nuts, and then they think they see somebody out on the water.
Mermaid. Yeah.
Anything else you notice here?
It could have been too far from the shore, though.
Fourth watch. What time is the fourth watch?
Early in the morning,
Yeah, I thought that was.
between 3 and 6 a.m. something like that.
Yeah. So it's the time just before sunrise.
So they've been up all night.
So they've been up all night,
Yeah.
rowing,
It makes sense.
Not resting, straining.
straining, not resting.
Not resting. I was assuming he sent them to rest, but
He sent them to go ahead,
Go ahead.
make camp,
they never made it.
and they never made it. Now, as a whole, is that an important detail? No,
No.
but it sets the stage for why they would think they're seeing an apparition and not looking for Jesus. They'd been fighting the waves all night long because it says before that Jesus, he dispersed the crowd. He sent them all home. And then he went on to the mountaintop and he spent some time in prayer before he set out. Anything else you notice?
Their hearts were hardened.
Yeah.
Look that up.
Okay.
It said blind, deadened, calloused, petrified, lack of understanding.
So one of the scariest phrases in all of scripture is when it says that either God hardened their heart, God allowed them to harden their heart, or their hearts were hard. Because what that means is that they've essentially turned themselves away from what God is trying to show them. They are so agitated and frustrated at having to row through the night that they don't have the ability to see the message God is wanting to show them. So what I just talked about the feeding of the 5,000, they're not getting it. They see the miracle. They can't argue with the miracle, but they're not getting it.
And when he sent them to Bethsaida, that's called House of Fish. You think they would have, I don't know, put the miracle they just saw together when they,
We're gonna go get a bunch of fish. what is it that Jesus called Peter, James, and John to?
Yeah.
Being fishers of men.
Pictures of
Yeah.
them.
And so they're going to the fish house.
They were dull.
They were just a little dense right now.
I mean, do you think they could be like everybody else, though they weren't really expecting Jesus to be Jesus?
Oh, I think absolutely.
You know, they had so many disillusioned people that, I mean, just like now, we've got so many people that think they're higher than God that.
They were looking for something very different than what they got. And, you know, we are guilty of that at times too. We still expect God to do some things and he just doesn't. And then we don't expect God to do other things and then he does.
I expected a certain way.
And we expect it a certain way. And, you know,
I still think in the back of my mind, they're still thinking this Messiah was gonna come in, you know, and he was going to,
Chariots blazing.
bend a big white horse with a big sword, and that's not what he did. He come in with love.
how many miracles do you have to experience
Yeah.
before you finally accept what God's trying to do?
Yeah, you would think the miracles would throw them. You would think feeding the people and all of a sudden all this fish turns into, and you would think, but they're still just in awe, I think. I think they're just kind of like us. Sometimes we're dense.
No.
Yeah, we're dense all the time. Dense a lot
We
of
would
times.
probably be the same way.
But
I'm going to ask a different question. We all know the story. What's not here? What part of the story are we not getting this time?
I don't know the answer to that, but I have a question.
Go for it.
It told us that Jesus saw them straining at the oars. And so my expectation would be that he would be headed out to help them and like, I'm coming, beanie boy. And instead it tells us that he was planning to pass by. I don't understand that.
So was he like walking on the water and just taking the shortcut, not walking on the shore?
He was walking on the water because the other side of it is, see if I can,
Let me fix that map first.
this map's too small. But essentially, Bethsaida's up here and he was in the Decapolis. So he's going this way. He could have gone the around here, but he was probably taking a shorter cut. You almost get the impression, Deb, the way when I read that, I was like, he decided he was going to go out to the boat and help them. And he got there and he realized, yeah, they don't have the right mindset. I'm just going to walk past. There, you know, that hardness of heart part, I think that's tied to, you know, no offense. Sometimes as a leader, there are meetings I don't want to go into because I know everybody's going to have bad attitude and it doesn't matter how hard I try. We're just going to argue about stuff. Do you get the picture I'm painting here? Jesus is going to walk out, be with his boys. He sees them straining at the oars and thinks, yeah, their heart's not in the right place. I'm not ready to have this conversation. We'll just walk past. Because sometimes, let's face it, in God's kindness to us, he just doesn't make us have the conversation we need to have. Do you get what I'm saying there?
Yeah. But didn't the apostle just get back from doing like miraculous signs?
Yes.
And wonders? And maybe he's thinking they can stop the wind, but they don't.
Ooh,
Why don't they
Why
cry
didn't they
out for
just
help?
help themselves?
yes.
They
So
just did all these miracles.
in verse 30, it starts this section by saying he had sent them out. They had done miraculous stuff. Then they just watched him feed these 20,000 people. And now they're in the boat straining at the oars instead of taking the authority that they've already been given.
It's just not clicking. So whenever he says here, immediately to them, and he said, and I bet he said, have courage. I'm thinking, don't be afraid.
Yeah, but how many times in our life do we don't take our authority too?
We don't.
We
No.
just,
How many
we
times
see
we
stuff
don't?
too.
Yeah.
And then we go, the next thing we go through, we're like,
We're
You
in
know, we don't-
anxiety and stress and
we're,
worry.
it takes a while before we're like, oh, I should probably pray about this.
Exactly. Then it clicks later, like,
Yes,
right? I got afraid about
can't
that.
be too hard on them, but
Well, that's how I always feel sorry for them, because I'm kind of dense like that.
Does that make sense, Deb? Does that help? Kind of,
Sorry, I had trouble unmuting, but yes, I understand what you're saying.
now, again, that's our reading into it, what's going on. So I don't know that to be the case, but the picture that's being painted is you getting a little bit of a frustrated Jesus that his disciples, that he's already given them the authority, they're still not getting it. Have you guys got the answer to my question yet? What's not here? In the other stories of Jesus walking on the water, what does it tell us?
Peter gets out and walks with him.
Yeah.
yeah,
There's no story of Peter making a statement of faith and making a step of faith in this story. Why do you think that is?
Because Peter didn't tell Mark that? Because he doesn't talk about himself as much?
I think you're dealing with a humbled Peter who does not want to lift himself up, who doesn't see himself as worthy anymore. He's not the foot and mouth Peter, he's a humbled Peter. And so he doesn't have Mark write that into the story because it paints a picture of him that he no longer wants people to see. The other gospels are enamored with it. They're like, look at Peter's faith. Look what he did. And if this is Peter's story, he's like, yeah, maybe that was a minor moment, but that's not who I want to be seen.
He didn't want to talk about himself. I can see that.
I just like pointing that out with this story too, because if Peter is the person behind the story, then we are seeing a much different Peter. I'm certain that there are stories of your life when you were younger that you used to tell with a lot of pride, and now that you're older and you look back on it, you're like, it wasn't nearly as good as I thought it was at the time. Anything else you notice in here? Or any other questions? All right. Well, then Monday's reading was Mark 7, 1 through 13. So the Pharisees and some of the teachers of the law who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus and saw some of his disciples eating food with hands that were unclean, that is, unwashed. The Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they give their hands a ceremonial washing, holding to the tradition of the elders. When they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash, and they observe many other traditions, such as the washing of cups, pitchers, and kettles. So the Pharisees and the teachers of the law asked Jesus, why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders, instead of eating their food with unclean hands? He replied, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites, as it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are but rules taught by men. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to the traditions of men. And he said to them, you have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your own traditions. For Moses said, honor your father and your mother, and anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. But you say that if a man says to his father or mother, whatever help you might otherwise have received from me is Corban, that is, a gift devoted to God, then you no longer let him do anything for his father or mother. Thus, you nullify the word of God by your tradition that you have handed down, and you do many things like that. What do you notice? What questions do you want to ask?
So is the washing of hands from God's law or the Pharisees' law? Sort of,
It's Old Testament. So there is the Old Testament understanding that when you come to the tabernacle for worship, you are to wash and to present yourself clean. It was a symbolic act of outwardly washing to show an inwardly that you are trying to present yourself pure before God. You get what I'm saying with that? But that had expanded, and they had created a whole culture around it to where you're supposed to be clean all the time, not just clean in God's presence, but all the time. And so they created a whole system of washing every day, before every meal, every time they come in from the marketplace, which is usually when you deal with Gentiles, anytime you come and contemplate, it just became a huge deal. Not necessarily bad, because we know now today, wash your hands, right? Every time you go to the bathroom, every time you eat, all those things. We know that there's value in it, but they had built a culture around it that went far beyond what God required.
so like culture or human tradition and more like it's kind of like legalism.
It's more of the legalism issue. And what?
It's a whole,
A what?
holocaust.
Hanukkah? I don't,
Remember that when the Chasbury Tim was talking about that?
Oh,
Things that aren't actually biblical, but they're like traditions or things that the Pharisees instituted that didn't really weren't biblically based.
not bad. These things aren't
No, it
bad.
doesn't say it was bad, just it's things that we take as biblical, but it's not actually.
So it says on verse 8, abandoning the command of God and holding on to the human tradition. So they put a human tradition into God's law. Is that basically?
They took God's law
And changed it.
Expanded it.
and expanded it. I don't think they changed
No,
it,
not changed, but yeah,
but they expanded it
for their own traditions.
to become what became their own tradition. This section here, I think there's worth having a conversation, and I want to make sure we have enough time. We got about 40 minutes. There is an ongoing debate about the value of tradition. I want to say this because I know, for instance, like you and I have talked some about this, being raised in the Catholic Church, a lot of Protestants throw a lot of shade at the Catholics for their traditions. And they call them man-made traditions. And they're using this language right here to say that that stuff isn't valuable. Why are you doing that? Don't do it. Is that an appropriate use of this language or a misappropriation of what's going on here?
I don't know, reword it.
Yeah.
I think the way I asked the question shows my prejudice, so
Listen,
we have a tendency in our attempt to get back to Jesus that we throw out a lot of really good things. Jesus was not saying the notion of washing when you come to the temple is bad. But a lot of people would throw out the whole washing altogether because of what he's saying here. Do you get what I'm saying? That we see that whole washing thing as the tradition. And so it's not just the washing when it's not needed, but all of it. We don't need to do that. We don't have to worry about that. God's not concerned about cleanliness like that anymore. And yet, we also I can hear my grandma saying cleanliness is next to godliness,
Godliness.
which is not in the Bible. by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah. It was in grandma's.
Grandma's
Grandma.
Grandma's Bible. When we come across things that have become tradition, tradition is not bad. It's not bad at all, but we need to ask the why of the tradition. You know, it may have started to do one thing and over time it became something else, but that doesn't mean it's bad either. What is happening here is they are using their tradition as a weapon against Jesus's disciples, saying, you guys aren't doing this, and why aren't you? When the this was actually beyond what God had originally commanded.
And these Pharisees, it says, these Pharisees and some of the scribes had come from Jerusalem. So these had to be big guys.
These
Do
are
you
the,
think? I think they would be big people.
and some of, so I think that paints another picture there.
Ones in their own right.
Yeah, there you go.
That paints another picture. You know, I don't, where is our, I'm, this is really bad and I'm apologizing for I'm about ready to ask. What's our state capital?
Springfield,
Springfield.
Chicago, they want it.
Might as well be.
Yeah.
In Indiana, they would always say, well, here comes the bigwigs from Indy. I'm assuming there's a similar kind of understanding here. If people are coming down from Springfield, you know, they kind of have their heads wrapped in a certain idea,
In their tradition.
in their tradition.
These guys were in tradition.
These are the people who are living in Jerusalem. They're living around the temple all the time. And so for them, this washing thing is really important there. It may not be important at all here because there's no temple here.
No temple. Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So to a certain degree, some of it is we have to learn how to make sure that our presuppositions aren't shading something that does not matter. That's,
I'm gonna ask a really bad
go for it.
now. So we do the Lord's Supper
Mhm.
once a month. I look at the Catholic Church and they do it every week.
Mhm.
Well, so, and there's not good and bad there. I can't see, but I was always used to doing it every week. And it seemed funny to only do it once a month. But then sometimes I told Todd, I said, I think when you do it once a month, you appreciate it more. Or I don't know.
It was more reverent.
It is. And I think I got in a routine doing it every week and I kind of blinded. I mean, I hate to say that because I tried. That's something that's really important to me. But I think I kind of numbed up because I did it every week. So I do it once a month. And when I do it once a month here, it is more reverent. I feel, I don't know. But then I think, why are we not doing it once a week? Or
Once a month.
I mean, every
Every
week.
Why are we not doing it weekly?
Yeah. So how did we do that? How did we get away from that? Or was that always a tradition? You know,
That's right.
yeah. Yeah, we better pass it.
Okay, so I want to try and keep this short.
Yeah, okay.
The irony is once a month is a clear version of this.
Okay. That's
In Acts, it says they got together every single day and celebrated the Lord's Supper. That's one of, I don't know that I'm going to go into that detail yet in the sermon series I'm in, but that's a part of what it says. Us doing it once a month is a tradition, and it harks back to our heritage. As Methodists, we planted churches everywhere we went. That if we could get 3 or 4 families together, that would become a class meeting. And every time that we could get 3 or 4 class meetings together, we would plant a society or a church.
Unity, yeah.
And the circuit rider, the elder, would come around and would serve communion as often as they were there.
Oh, I see where it come from.
Are you starting to see where it is?
Yeah.
So in our rules, the Methodist Church back in the late 1800s, it says you should take communion a minimum of quarterly to make sure that the elder got around to serve communion. But there was nothing that said how often there's a maximum to how often you can take it. In the 1900s, when we stopped being circuit riders and pastors started getting stationed at churches already had a tradition of only doing it about once a month. So the people said, well, we just do it once a month. That's good enough. And that became the tradition. Even though John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist movement, he said he takes it at a minimum of 3 or 4 times a week.
See, I read that on here and I'm thinking, I'm so confused on, yeah, now I know though. I know what. you're
Now,
saying.
the pragmatic side of it here is, I'm just going to be honest with you. Our sanctuary makes it logistically difficult to offer communion in a way that you can do it expeditiously and in a way that's reverent.
It's rushed.
Because
There's not enough room.
there's just not a good space for it. There's not a lot of room for it. And we have a tradition of a worship service should be an hour. You get what I'm saying? So we've actually applied this tradition thing in the exact opposite way of what Jesus would want here on this issue. So there's a part of me, and I don't even remember who we were talking to about this. This is the 3rd conversation I've had about this in about a week.
I didn't know that.
Well, it's probably because everybody read this verse, so.
It very well could be, but because other people noticed at my last church, we did communion every Sunday in both services.
There you go.
But
Yeah.
their sanctuary is laid out very differently. And at first, when we moved to every week, people griped. They never griped to me, they griped to each other. Now, the irony is, I got to tell you this story, and as our youth person, you're going to appreciate this.
Okay.
So there was a group of these ladies that most of them were my communion stewards that helped put out communion, and they were going to a prayer event, and they had a couple of youth with them, and they were up front kind of bickering about how much work it was to do communion every single week. And one of the girls in the back, who had only been going to church for about a year, she all of a sudden spoke up and she said, most weeks I mess up, but I like the fact that I can come to church and I take communion and it reminds me that Jesus still forgives me. And she shut her mouth and they shut their mouths.
That's the truth. You
Yeah.
did feel like that. There was weeks when we did it every week and it would be, I needed this so bad. And there's times in the middle of the month and you think, oh, it would be nice to have that. But
So bare minimum, what I'm considering, and I haven't even had a chance to talk to Deb about this yet, is to put the silver tray out each week with the individual wrapped cups for those who want it on any given Sunday. During the final song, if you would like to just come take communion, come take communion.
That's what my sister's church does, but they have it like at the exit when you leave the church. That's some kind of doorway.
If somehow I could figure out the logistics of doing it every week and doing a full communion service and make it something fruitful, I would love to do that. But I can't figure out, we're not really liturgical to do the whole communion liturgy. We've done it once since I've been here, and it was nice, but I felt like it was also my first Sunday, and I probably should do it again to see if it still fits us or not, because it just, that Sunday, we were here for an hour and a half. But part of that was we did the whole liturgy, and Melissa and I served everyone. Now we have 3 stations. We're doing 3 servers, one with the cup, one with the plate, and one with the bread. And so it's moving a lot faster. I think it's starting to make sense. And so maybe we could do the liturgy and it would still work and it'd be fine. But I don't know that. But fear of tradition has caused this pastor here to not be willing to try it yet, because I don't want to make people mad.
Well, you might make some people happy.
Oh, I'm certain I would make some other people happy.
You're not gonna
Me?
please all the people all the time.
Correct. I know that. I know that. I know that I know that. I've preached that how many times? But I'm still human, and Pastor Sam is not the same thing as Samuel Paget. Samuel Paget sometimes is deathly afraid of all you guys.
Well, we're afraid of you. That's the Maddie.
Yes, poor Maddie.
It was okay the first time, but then
Oh, that's funny.
So I think I'm moving that direction. Bare minimums make it available every Sunday.
But those Methodists, an hour and a half church, they're like.
and then go to 12
Yeah, they
o'clock,
do.
we wouldn't beat the Baptist to the restaurant.
Yeah.
That drives me crazy. Right, I mean, such our Sunday, do what he wants.
See, this is, now,
Exactly.
That's what I think.
now we're learning how to take the scriptural principle here and apply it to our life.
Yes.
Because they're so concerned about one thing, and it's actually causing them to miss what God is wanting to do.
Right.
And to a certain degree, our human tradition between, we're used to an hour-long service, and then, of course, there's that whole thing where we're only paying for an hour on the radio. And so I gotta make sure that I get us at the end of the hour, I gotta make sure we're at a spot where it makes sense for the people who don't get the rest of it. And then there's the whole thing of, we have a sanctuary that isn't real great for trying to get people to come down and take it. And someone said, well, you could just pass the plate around. And I'm like, no, for me, that's not communion. You know, I want people to come forward and receive it. Now, for the ones who can't, we'll take it to them.
Yeah.
That's definitely a thing that
Yeah.
Melissa wants to make sure we do. But again, it hasn't been a battle I've been willing to fight, because we were taking on so many other things, and I was just afraid I was making people upset about a whole bunch of other stuff. So I didn't want to deal with this because I didn't know where we were at as a church. So I let tradition get in the way of doing what probably is best.
We want to keep it meaningful and
So then there you go to the opposite side of it. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, but if we did this every week, it'd lose its meaning.
I disagree with that.
I don't
I do
think it
too.
does. I did it in that church forever.
I did too, twice a week for
Yeah,
years.
and I,
And my immediate response to those people is, it depends on the attitude you're bringing to
right.
it.
And there was times when I said I got numb. I was a young kid and it was like, I was tired, you know, but now I see the importance of it and I kind of miss it. There's times I feel like I need it.
So, bare
That was a
minimum,
kid.
Deb,
well, I've been nervous about taking it and not taking it reverently
Mhm.
or, because
because Paul
I
does say,
wasn't in the right frame of mind, or I wasn't, well, maybe I felt like I sinned extra that week and.
Then you needed extra.
And I needed extra.
yeah, I was gonna say, if you sinned extra that week, then that's all the more reason to take it.
Deb knows where it is.
Yeah, I can go in there and do it.
Self-serve, out of the fridge.
I understand that though, because I remember when I was little, we were in this church for a weekend or two. When we went back, my dad would never go up for communion.
And I've seen people not take communion. I thought, wonder what's in their head that they're not taking it. That
Oh,
it
yeah,
just
to me,
blows
it's
my
important.
mind. It's just like,
we need,
He felt like he shouldn't take it since he had missed like the week or two before. So he would not feel like he should take it. I don't know where that came from.
yeah,
If that was something he was ready
needed
to
to
do.
get it back into the. and
Does it
it's-
say need to go to confession first?
I don't know, maybe.
May I say something?
Go for it, Deb.
We had guests this past Sunday, and we
Uh-huh.
had a discussion after church about communion. She was so afraid that we were going to have communion, and she didn't know how she was going to deal with that. She's kind of a germaphobe, and so something communal like that bothers her. And I told her that I was told, and I think it was in Emmaus, because in Emmaus, if you do an Emmaus walk, you take communion lots of times during that weekend.
Every day.
And I told her that I was told that if you were uncomfortable taking it in a church where you were, that you could just cross your arms across your heart in front of you and you just walk on by. You're still part of the family that comes down, but you don't have to feel uncomfortable about not taking it. And one other thing, when I started in that church, we had communion quarterly. And we started having people coming from the Catholic Church, from the Christian church denomination, that were not happy because we only had communion quarterly. And our pastor talked with us and decided that in order to, um, make those people more comfortable, that we went to once a month. So that's how that happened.
Isn't it funny how it's all about perspective? So the thing that you said, the first part of it, I wasn't looking at you, but I wondered if you'd weigh in on it, because I know that you're probably our most recent Catholic convert.
Yeah, I mean, people do that if they don't want to take communion, but they want to go up and
So-
get blessed.
It's in the Catholic Church, as a non-Catholic, if I go, I always go forward and then you're taught to cross your arms, and the priest will bless you, but you're not allowed to take communion because you're not Catholic. And so that is apart from that reality, that most Protestants don't do that. So that's an interesting thing that I'm glad that you had been taught that. But I haven't ever really talked about that in my churches before. I usually just tell people that if you don't feel like coming forward, it's perfectly okay. Now, you still have the issue of like when Melissa or whoever sends our servers to the people who just don't move very well and serve them in their seat, then they have to decide whether or not they're going to say no or whatever. But I think this is a very fruitful conversation.
She would have been quite comfortable with the sealed cups that has both the bread and the cup all in one.
Right.
We've been we've been putting a mix of those in on the trays,
Yeah,
so.
it makes for more work. But when you offer all three options, I think it encourages people to be able to participate who may not otherwise. But I probably just need to give that reminder to people.
And I think if you walk them through, like when you're talking about communion, on how we take it, like we do intinction, but we also have these other two options. I think it makes a lot of people's visitors' nerves kind of settled because they're like, oh, I don't want to stick my fingers.
And both ways, whether you're germaphobe or whether you actually can't have bread if you're
Right.
gluten free, and you cannot have both ways if you're worried about germs, which how do you say that out of the pulpit? If you're worried about germs or you're gluten
I
free.
mean, we could just start serving wine instead, and then you don't got to worry about the germs because it kills the germs.
There you go. That's a good idea. We could do that.
Of course, this,
Sleeping in there.
of course, then you gotta ask, are you just doing the dip, or then is everybody drinking from the cup?
Give me the cup.
You know, I touch my bread and I put it in. I don't touch anything. I feel like I do. I
Some
don't,
people, they
Sorry,
can't
then you got the little,
think and-
I'm gonna gripe, and it's always an old church lady who pinches off just barely enough bread to cover their, and then they try to dip it in.
oh, I lost it.
Yeah, last time I just pinched it on for that.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling our.
His fingers going in the
I
bread.
agree with that.
If they don't want that much bread, then don't eat it. Just.
Now, we did a
We-
series when our
we
kids
also-
were. Go ahead, Deb.
We also need to make it clear each time that it's open to everyone, because if they come from the Catholic Church, they probably won't take it anyway. But
Or the
if they
Lutheran
wanted to,
Church, or-
they wouldn't feel that they could, I don't think.
We did a
And,
service.
and we had a situation one time where we had a young man that visited our church that was from the Catholic Church. And we had the instructions printed in the bulletin, that we're going to do it by intinction, and that you pull off the bread and you dip it in the cup. But, people don't read the bulletin, I'm sad to say, having typed it for 12 years.
Yeah.
But anyway, he did what he would have done in his own church, and he went up and he actually drank from the communal cup. So
Oh,
that's probably another reason why we need to give oral instruction of how we're doing it.
Drink after each other every time.
We got a little bit of time. Okay, I gotta tell two stories. One, I preached on communion at our church in Mount Etna, and I talked to them about how, this is us needing Jesus. And so I kind of made fun of the little old ladies who just do a little pinch. I said, is that all the Jesus you need? And so then all the kids came forward and they were taking hunks of bread and dipping it in, and it's on. But the irony was, we had enough bread. Everybody took what they wanted, and there was enough bread for everybody. The other one is, make fun of a tradition that's not around here at all. In the Eastern Orthodox tradition, they take the bread and they put it in the cup, and then the priest has a spoon
It's so nasty. It's like a slurry.
and spoons it together.
It's like
no.
mushy stuffing.
there is
Pretty big
from
stuffing.
Emmaus
Yes.
that says, I need a big hunk of Jesus. So he would always take a big portion of bread.
But since I'm dealing with a bunch of ladies here, I'll tell you the story from seminary. We were showing a video in my worship class of an Orthodox priest serving communion that way. And a lady came up who was a little well endowed and went to spoon her, and she ducked back and it dropped.
Yeah.
And so then he went after it. And the video ends with a so
A video of dope dudes.
because of their tradition, you don't, if you're not a priest, you don't touch the host because it's truly the
Yeah.
body and blood of Christ.
But the blood of Christ, yeah.
But so we could go, it could go too far the other direction. All right,
I got nothing.
we got 15 minutes. I still got 2 days worth of readings, right? 3 days worth of readings. Well, oh boy.
You heard your reading.
We're gonna read, I'm just gonna read it all and we'll see if there's anything stands out. So Mark 7:14 through 8:10. Okay, read. Again, Jesus called the crowd to him and said, listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside a man can make him unclean by going into him. Rather, it is what comes out of a man that makes him unclean. After he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. Are you so dull? He asked. Don't you see that nothing that enters a man from the outside can make him unclean? For it doesn't go into his heart, but into his stomach, and then out of his body. In saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. He went on, what comes out of a man is what makes him unclean. For from within, out of a man's heart, comes evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and make a man unclean. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose daughter was possessed by an evil spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. Yes, Lord, she replied, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon, down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged him to place his hand on the man. After he took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven, and with a deep sigh said to him, Ephphatha, which means be opened. At this, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they said. He makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. During those days, another large crowd gathered. Since they had nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will collapse on the way because some of them have come a long distance. His disciples answered, but where in this remote place can anyone get enough bread to feed them? How many loaves do you have? Jesus asked. 7, they replied. He told the crowd to sit down on the ground. When he had taken the 7 loaves and gave thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to set before the people, and they did so. They had a few small fish as well. He gave thanks for them also and told the disciples to distribute them. The people ate and were satisfied. Afterwards, the disciples picked up 7 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. About 4,000 men were present, and having sent them away, he got into the boat with his disciples and went to the region of Dalmanutha. All right. What do you notice? What questions you want to ask?
Unclean, 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 unclean. I noticed that. Those are, she was unclean. She was,
Syrian Phoenician.
yeah, Syrian Phoenician. And then I think these people here, the 7 with feeding the 4,000 there, I'm kind of thinking those are Gentiles, where these might have been Jewish more people. I don't know that. I'm asking that. I don't know. But I kind of took it that they were, but I'm also taking it that the disciples, I don't think they wanted to mess with them. They were, to me, it seems like they thought they were unclean. They were
Absolutely.
Gentiles.
Jesus is completely redefining what it means to be unclean.
Right.
At the beginning of 7, he's talking to the Pharisees about washing, as if somehow being on the outside clean makes you clean. And he says that's not it. And there in the middle about the food that goes in. It doesn't matter what we eat. That's not what makes us unclean. He's talking about the heart. Then he goes to Tyre. These are not Jews and have never been Jews. These were outsiders. They would have been unclean. And yet Jesus stays with them and heals them. He even acknowledges this notion of that the Jews called them dogs. And she's like, I may be a dog, but I'll take whatever crumbs you give. And so he acknowledges the cleanness of her heart and heals her daughter.
Her humility.
Her humility. He moves into Sidon, an even less clean place than Tyre. And he does things. Then he comes back down to the Decapolis. Is this the Jewish area? No. Greek speakers again. unclean people.
And he shows compassion.
And he shows compassion
Mhm.
and he feeds them. And so, yes, this whole section in Mark, because we got a little bit of time. So who is the audience for Mark's gospel? Herodians. What would the Jews said about the Herodians? Were they clean people or unclean people?
Unclean.
Unclean. They were Edomites. Okay, I'm jumping to last night's Bible study. You know who the Edomites are? They are the children of one of Lot's
Lots.
daughters.
Yeah, I say lots.
Where they get their dad drunk and they sleep with him and they get pregnant.
Mhm.
These are, I mean, wouldn't we say that's about as unclean as it gets?
Yeah.
And so this whole message that Mark is building here from Jesus's ministry is that the Jews might tell you, Herodians, you're outside. But Jesus doesn't. If you turn to him, it doesn't matter if you're a Samaritan, from Tyre, from Sidon, the Greeks, even an Edomite. God will accept you if you turn to him.
He's making it known right there. Get rid of your bigotry. We're gonna love them all.
Mark's gospel is written to the outsiders, to the people who explicitly heard from the Jews, you're not good enough.
Yeah, because when you just read bits and pieces of this, you know, like you're going back and reading, you don't catch this until I sit down and read the whole thing, and then you see, ooh, unclean, unclean, unclean. It ties it together.
He is breaking down
Yeah.
all their notions of what it means to be clean, what it means to be in good graces with God.
We're all forgiven, all dirty.
It's open to anyone who will come to him in faith.
And this shows his identity. Now it's out. Now here's his identity.
So for those of you who come to Wednesday night and you watch, once we finally make it through Genesis and we read in Exodus, watch that, because you'll see that God's heart is still on display there, even when we look at it and we think that it says something else. Because we often read Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy from this version of Israelite faith, not what it actually says. God is saying over and over and over again, you're a nation of priests. We want everyone to come. And they keep saying, but do we really? We don't want those people in here. And yet God is constantly saying, no, I want anybody who will turn to me. What you got there, Karen? I
I
see
got a question.
the light bulbs are
It didn't
going.
take too long.
It's okay.
Okay. It's regarding this spit and this finger in the ear thing. And the verse that says he has done everything well. Well also means good, right? Okay. My mind goes to the blind man where Jesus spit in the dust and made mud, put on his eye.
Right.
See. It also goes back to Genesis on, find it, let's see, verse, let's see.
Yeah.
Hang on. Genesis 2, verse 6 and 7, it says, but mist would come up on the earth and water all of the ground. So you got mud, right? Then the Lord God formed the man out of the dust from the ground and breathed, anyway, from the dust out of the ground. So that's creation. Is he creating an ear and an eye when he did that? That's what I thought. 'Cause
It
it's
is
very
meant
good.
to
It's good.
evoke
Goes back-
that hands-onness of God when he first created humanity.
Yeah,
That
used,
he used
His
the
hand.
breath, he
Yeah.
used the water, he used his hands. And he is doing the very same thing in the Gospels to fix what has been broken.
So like if it's in his ear, he may be creating
He
the,
could have been very well
Mhm.
making the bones in your ears that allow you to hear. Absolutely, he could have.
Isn't that funny though, how we still go boom, boom, but you go back
you go back to Genesis. all
and
the
can
time.
pick it up and come back here and read it, and you can come back here and read it again.
Well, I was thinking about the
It's just
4,000, number 4
It
is
just all
creation.
ties.
Kind of what can be created.
4,
Completeness.
okay, so you want to talk numerology?
I don't
Oh, I
know.
love numerals.
4 is the number of the relationship between the Godhead and humanity.
Hmm.
Okay? So 4 almost always represents God's relationship to his creation. 1,000 is the Hebrew largest number. When you see anything that's times 1,000,
Mhm.
in our culture, that's almost like saying to infinity. So 4,000 is the number of all who will ever call upon God. That God is in relationship with any and all who will come to him. He will feed them. That is not on accident. Because they probably could have done the math and counted literally every person. 5, if you're here on Wednesday night, what have I said 5 was? You remember? 4 is the number for the relationship between God and humanity. 5 is the number for God's grace. So 5 times 1,000 is God's grace upon grace for all who will come. So the 5,000 is Jewish people, grace upon grace to all who will come. The 4,000 is to Gentile people. Anyone who wants to be in a relationship with God is welcome to come and eat. And what's left over for the Jewish people? 12 baskets, 1 for each tribe. What's left over for the Gentile people? 7 baskets, the perfect amount of completeness. Those numbers are not accidental.
I do have a question for number 7.
Go for it.
Can that mean Holy Spirit? Does that represent Holy Spirit?
7 is a lot of times Holy Spirit number. Yeah, it can be. What you think?
I've never, nothing. I just. Oh, yeah.
6 is the number. 6 is the number for man, humanity,
Yeah.
in our incompleteness. 7 is the number for God. It can be the number for the Father. It can be the number for the Spirit. It can be the number for Jesus. It can be for the Trinity, all 3. But 7 often means a wholeness, and it's a God kind of wholeness. 12 represents a human wholeness. 7 represents a God wholeness.
Yeah, I feel like in 8 verse 4, something like, where can anyone get enough bread? I feel like in a desolate place. I feel like there's something more to that. Like desolate, I think of the wilderness.
Well, and where are they? Where are they in this story?
Oh, Galilee. You weren't too tired, I'm not. I was-
Desert.
They're in the Decapolis.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is the Greek speaking area. They're going to see it as a wilderness, not because it's a agricultural wilderness, but because it's filled with Greek speakers and their Greek gods. So where can you find the bread of life in amongst a wilderness of paganism?
We're tied in the Holy Spirit too.
And what's Jesus do?
He feeds them.
He feeds them anyway.
Feeds them.
Yeah.
That's not minor. Every detail is there for a reason.
There's a lot in there.
There is.
There's a
My
lot.
brain is
Yeah,
tired.
right here. We're only up to chapter 8. There's a lot right there. So now does it switch?
Wait,
Now, this is kind of in Jesus' identity. Now, when we go to 8, does that switch to his mission then? Are we working on his mission then?
well, we'll see next week, won't we?
I read ahead. cheated.
There's no cheating to it. Let's pray. Lord, when we feel like we're in the desert, may we turn our eyes to you. Because we are coming to understand just how much you want to feed us and just how much you want us to know your heart and your love. Lord, I'm grateful that you are open to any and all who will receive you. And I pray that we would truly keep our eyes fixed on you. And that we would walk the walk you're asking us to walk, so that the world might see you in and through us. Be glorified in us, we pray. In Jesus' name. Amen. And I know that there's a reality that we may or may not, a lot of people may not get here Sunday, but we do have the next bookmark if you want them. So you could probably stop by and get one from the office before they get put out. So we'll see you guys later.
This was a good class. This was a good lesson.